Hello and welcome to the Fit and Free podcast. This is a podcast for women who want it all, to feel strong and confident in their bodies, as well as enjoying a sneaky mug on a Friday night. I'm an exercise physiologist and sports nutritionist, here to teach you how to achieve your body goals without food and your body controlling your life. So let's jump in. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Fit and Free podcast. In today's episode, I have another special guest, one of my clients, Alana. In today's episode, we talk about the most important things that helped Alana break free from the diet mentality and helped her get in the best shape of her life. How she was able to find food freedom and the mindset shifts that she had to make in order to reach her goals. We speak how she overcame the fear of weight gain and the top tips for managing all of life's stresses. So let's get into it. Hello, Alana. Thank you so much for jumping on with me today. First of all, I would love if you could tell us what you do and what does life look like for you now?
Hello, thanks for having me. What do? I run my own HR consulting business. I'm a wife. I've got two little men. They're age 8 and 10. We have a really active life. I'm sure if there are any listeners who have young kids, you will totally be seeing and hearing that stage of life. So life's busy. Yeah, there's kids' sports, there's school, there's running a business, and looking after myself as well in amongst all of that.
You're honestly such a constant inspiration for me. And I'm not even just saying that to like toot your own horn or anything. Like to be able to successfully run your own business, to be a loving wife and to have, look after your kids. And then as well as literally like achieve all your exercise sessions, all your walks, tracking your food, like you are literally like so amazing. So you need to be proud of yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
I would love if you could tell us a little bit more in and around when you first became aware of your relationship with food and your body and when that really did start to become a struggle for you.
Yeah. Look, I think it's always been something in my life. As long as I can remember all the women in my life, and I come from a very female-centric family, everyone was always on a diet. They were always talking about a diet. They were always talking about what their bodies look like. I also grew up in the 80s and 90s, right, where what we see as body image is so different today. And I had a bit of a rough time as a kid in terms of just, single parent family. My mum had a really bad accident when I was little, and I definitely used food as comfort, without a doubt. I also grew up in an Italian family, and, for anyone who's of European descent, you will know that food plays such a big part of just gatherings, right? It's a way of actually bringing people together and connecting. So there was always this real abundance of food and a real encouragement to eat it, right? I mean, I remember having to sit at the dinner table. I couldn't have dessert until I'd eaten all my food, right? We don't do that now. So it was such a different way of growing up and the relationship with food. So I think, look, as long as I can remember, it's something that I've consciously been aware of. And I think when I got to my teens, I felt a bit uncomfortable in my skin. I was definitely bigger in comparison to my friends at that age. And I remember, maybe like 13, 14, 15, I already started restricting what I ate. And actually normalize that was okay. That was the only way that I had to control what I was eating. I think actually through working with you, I've identified that was actually about controlling the only element in my life that I could control, given so much was out of control. I recognize that now. I clearly didn't have the emotional maturity at the time to recognize that. And then I think it just kind of progressed into adulthood, where I literally have probably just gone from diet to diet. And I will say, like, I've never been, really big, but I've also never felt super comfortable in my body. I've never kind of looked in the mirror and gone, you look amazing, or maybe times I would have, like, getting dressed up because you're going out, but not a consistent thing. There was always this idea of picking, my body to pieces. So, yeah, I think always, which is awful, right? Gosh.
Yes, but at the same time, like, let's be compassionate towards ourselves, because we definitely don't have that emotional intelligence, and like all our belief systems are created from our exposure and what's around us. And it's so hard. And we watch even still the younger generation with their social media being impacted in such a negative way and jumping in that comparison piece into negative rather than looking at evidence that it's like, possible for you. So
yes.
All of that is so hard. And that's such a common thing that I hear all the time, because I had exactly the same experience of developing earlier than all of my friends. I was bigger. I was the bigger one, and I hit puberty before everyone else. So that is really common within females who are older who do have that, negative body image. So we just need to bring awareness to that. And it's such a hard topic as well, because we see so many people that are going through it. So just need to normalize the struggle a little bit, I think, and just be really kind and compassionate towards ourselves. So that really leads us really nicely into what diets and exercise routines did you try in the past? Tell me. And were they successful?
Geez, God, you name it, I've tried it, right? I think
that.
It's just stupid, man. The one that I was doing before I started working with you was so ridiculous. At the time, of course, I didn't think it was ridiculous. I was literally eating 500 calories a day for 30 days. And then you would go through this 3-week kind of period of increasing your calories to get you back up to a normal level of, say, 12 to 1300, so that you could try to maintain that loss. Because, of course, 30 days at 500 calories, you lost a lot of weight. I just couldn't maintain it. No surprises. So that was, and that was horrific. Yeah, it was. And of course, if you think about now, through the education of working with you, of understanding the impact of food on my energy, I recognize now why I was such a grump for so long with my poor family during that period, right? There is no, and I'm exercising on top of that, right? I'm doing, 6 to 7 days of exercise. Lots and lots of cardio. I was using some weights, using an app to do that. But there was really no kind of progressive structure to my weight training. It was literally just pick a session and do it for the day. So I think, when you ask were they successful, I think short term, sure, some of them in the past have been, but long term, definitely not. I absolutely have either regained the weight that I lost. And again, I'm not talking huge amounts, but enough to kind of, get you to that discomfort stage. And I definitely didn't feel, from an exercise perspective, huge changes in my strength or, kind of my capability in that regard. I do actually really vividly remember our first call before the program started, where you said to me, asked me what foods I liked. And, I kind of rattled off some of the foods that I like to eat. And you're like, great, I'll build it into your plan. And I remember thinking, she can't be serious. I'm actually going to be able to eat that on this program. And then you said the same thing about exercise. What was I doing? And again, I'm rattling it off. And I'd said, I was running, and you said, ask me if I like running. Now, I hate running. I've never liked running. But again, I feel like I've just done it because that's the only thing that, you're burning more calories and therefore losing weight. And so you were like, well, why are you doing it? And I was like, it's a really, really great question. And we've been together now for almost a year. I've been for 2 runs and have hated both of them. One, I was so freaking sore afterwards. It impacted my weight training. But these were such big, do you remember? These were such big moments for me around, there's an alternative way of doing this and to be successful that isn't ruining your life. And I know that sounds extreme, but I think it's not until you're kind of out of it, of having done all these really extreme diets, that you can look on it and go, if I look at my life as a complete picture, all elements of my life, were all of my systems firing? Was I really happy? Was I, thriving in all these elements? And the answer is no, I'm not. I wasn't, right? And I think it's a really different ball game today, which is super exciting.
I love all of that. I love all of that so much. And there's a couple of talking points that I really want to pick out of that. And the first one really is how did you get and move through that mindset of not believing that you were able to eat your favorite foods and reach your body goals, to the belief of this is actually possible for me?
Yeah. I think there's some work that you and I did around limiting beliefs and this idea of, what's good or bad food, and you teaching me that actually there is no such thing as good or bad food, right? It's just how we choose to fuel our body. And I think they were really important moments in my education around kind of trusting, you and I have always talked about, kind of trusting the process. Yeah. And I think in terms of kind of overcoming that mindset there is a bit of trusting self and trusting you as the coach that you're working with, right? That you're kind of going, I know I've got to sit in this period and, eat this food. And the first period, I was excited to be eating the food that I was eating, and kind of like, this isn't going to last, right? I can't continue. At some point, this food is going to come out of my diet. And I think, certainly I probably ate, when I, look at my diet then versus my diet now, I definitely ate more foods like, pizzas and burgers and that sort of stuff that I'd homemade through the, the menu plans that you put together for me. And that's not really my normal way of eating in terms of what my body naturally likes. But definitely at the start, I was like, I really wanted to kind of go for this because I had this kind of permission almost that I could eat it. And it was a bit of a test, I think, to myself around, can I eat this and still, build muscle and get strong? And the answer is you can, but it's not easy. I'm definitely not going to sit here and say that I felt comfortable through all of that. I definitely had plenty of moments of going, oh, this is uncomfortable. And I'm eating all these carbs, right? And we've been like told carbs is the devil, and thinking this is going to be on my butt tomorrow for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And what would you say the one thing is that really helped you when you were sitting in that discomfort? Like, what were you actually doing to, not let that discomfort derail you and then go back to those restrictive behaviors?
Yeah. So I think there are a couple of key tools that you gave me early days to really help me listen to my own intuition around eating. Really listening to my hunger. So, this kind of scale of, 1 to 10, how hungry am I? That has been a game changer for me. I think, again, in moments where because we've restricted our diets for so long, when you're in front of food that you would in the past have considered bad food, we're gorging, right? We're probably not even really all that hungry. And so really, and even still today, it's become so intuitive for me to kind of, before I eat, as I'm eating, and then when I finish eating, kind of saying, how hungry am I on that scale of 1 to 10? Like, am I still hungry? And like all people, right? I've got days we are more hungry than others. And so there's another snack that kind of comes into my day. So I think that's been a game changer in terms of really listening to my body and being mindful of the cues that my body is giving me. And even actually stopping to eat if I haven't even finished my whole meal, right? Which I never would have done in the past. I would have continued to eat that whole meal, but actually being really mindful as you're kind of going through of kind of stopping and just asking that question. And I think the other thing linked to that is this idea of satisfaction. The amount of food that I've eaten over the past that has been so damn boring and unsatisfying just is totally ridiculous. When I love food and we have amazing food around us, in Australia. So as I've been like preparing food, is really saying, how satisfied will I be from eating this meal? Because that is absolutely what helps keep that hunger at bay, because I've had this real beautiful feeling of satisfaction. So I think those two tools have been game changers for me in terms of really trusting as I'm eating to kind of say, even though you've made this beautiful meal, you don't have to eat all of it, right? You can eat and leave the rest for leftovers the next day for lunch and add to it. Does that answer your question? Have I
Yes,
gone
that
off
absolutely
tangent?
answers my question so well, because it's beautiful for you to speak from this own experience, because it's really, really important for anyone that's going through that. They need to have evidence that it actually works, because going through that thought process of, holy shit, I have to eat more. I have to eat more carbohydrates. I have to, allow myself to have these pizzas and burgers. But if we're still in that space of, oh no, it's going to go straight to my hips, like you said, then it's really, really difficult. So that's why it's really beautiful that you can share your own experience, because like my experience is one thing, but then seeing other people go through it as well, it can be really helpful, because it's possible, and it's possible for everyone to experience the same thing to help them shift those beliefs. So absolutely did answer the question. In terms of like so there was that whole increasing the carb thing. There was all, allowing yourself permission to have all these foods. And I like to call that, there's a rebel stage, because when we go through that period of restriction, when we don't allow ourselves to eat these foods, there's a part of us then when we do, we're like, oh, let's have it all. I want the pizza, I want the burgers, I haven't had it for so long. But talk me through that experience of you going through that rebel phase and then like it evening out. Because I know a big thing for people is that, no, I can't have that because I'm not going to be able to stay in control. So
so look, I think first of all, having a menu plan and guidance from you gave me the boundaries in which I could work for. And I think that's really important when you are moving from such restriction into, hey, you can kind of eat everything, right? Because you're right. It is this kind of rebel stage. And I think certainly I'm the sort of person where I do like structure and I do, like to kind of have a plan. And so having that gave me this kind of confidence that if it was in the plan, then it was, it was okay food. And it wasn't that if there was food outside of the plan, but I used that menu plan to really guide my meals to help with that transition of trusting myself and trusting the food that I could eat without and then as I did that for a few weeks, I then started to kind of explore, right? I then went, okay, well, actually now I can try this sort of food and, looking at kind of the macro composition of the meal and making sure I've got some good proteins and making sure I've got good fats and there is carbs in my meal. Like, what does that look like? That really helped to move through that discomfort. I do always come back to there is so much I think there's so much lack of trust with ourselves as and maybe it is men too. I'm definitely going to say as women. I do remember at one point in my life saying to my husband, do you guys think about this? Like when you look in the mirror, do you have the same thought? And he's like, absolutely not. I think about what my body can do for me. I don't think about what it looks like. And they don't think about food the way we do, right? And so I do think there is this kind of deep trust that we have to build through that process with ourselves as we're kind of navigating this experience. It's funny, I use this terminology with my kids, right? We kind of talk about having moments of trust with each other. It's the same with yourself. Right, is I think as we're exploring and so you start eating from the menu plan, you go, great, yes, I feel comfortable, like move kind of from that discomfort. You then start to branch out from the menu plan, you're constructing your own foods. And again, these are all these kind of little moments of trust in yourself. And now it's so intuitive. It's how I eat. I don't ever feel that I can't have anything. And which is so freaking liberating. And particularly coming into the silly season, right, is there's so much ahead of us that you can't control, right? But what I've certainly learned is how do I make sure that I fuel my body really well in the meals that I can control? And again, just look for that really good kind of macro composition so that, and from a perspective of actually feeding my muscles, right? Given that that's the goal here. But yeah, I think trust plays a massive role.
I love that so much. And I love how you bring that to attention because I absolutely agree. And that's what one of my biggest coaching, helping people move through is building trust with themselves and building trust in and around food again. Like moving those limiting beliefs of I have no control. I'm going to eat it all. Like I'm going to, I'm going to binge eat. I'm going to lose it or X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be. It's that important piece of leaning into that discomfort and then being able to use those micro moments in their life to build that self-trust. So I love that so much. In terms of all of that, how did you really overcome the fear of weight gain and the fear of increasing our calories? Because I know it's such a common thing of women, weighing themselves frequently. And then looking at the scale and then being like, oh no, it's increased. I have to restrict, or, oh, it's decreased. That means I'm doing so well. I'm so good, X, Y, and Z. So how are you able to move through, even moving away from the scale for one, and then not focusing so much on weight gain and being okay with increasing calories?
Yes. Well, I mean, this was the game changer for me. I threw my scales out very early days. If you remember, I was like, this is not working for me. And partly because this stupid diet that I was on before I started working with you, you had to weigh yourself every day. So it became this thing that that's so bad, right? And as you will know, what that number said, that dictated my day, right? Which is so stupid. But that is how a lot of people kind of govern, their relationship with a scale. Absolutely. So it's like, this has got to go. I think, you and I talked a lot about trusting the process, but also coming back to what my goals were. And my goal was about changing my body composition. So, your role in educating me through science and through nutrition and how my body needed to be fueled to be able to do that was what helped me overcome the fear, right? And, you would say to me, people that are weightlifters or, who are kind of competing in this space, this is what they're doing. And they've got to sit through these periods of discomfort. And I think what's been really interesting for me now is, as you know, I've just gone through my first kind of deficit after we've been sitting in only at maintenance as well. So I'm excited about what will come next. And I've seen drastic changes in my body in only a few weeks of sitting in a deficit. So I know that it's giving me that extra confidence of it works, right? We have to fuel our bodies appropriately, let alone just to get through our busy days, right? But then add wanting to kind of change body composition. So I think, again, it's coming back to like what my goals were and, you know, your role in educating me through that. And we have plenty of moments where we jump on calls and I go, oh, my clothes are tight. Oh, when am I going into a deficit? And that's just that discomfort bit, right? And you'd sit there and we'd look at my body comparison pics and you could see the stuff that I can't see. And I think that's, you know, the challenge is sometimes when you're the person in it, you almost become a little blind to your progress. And so I think certainly working with someone who, you know, is standing back a little bit makes a massive difference in terms of helping you to see, you know, it isn't something that changes from day to day. I will also say when I started this, I said to myself, this is at least a year commitment. And that's because I've done all these really quick, stupid 8-week diets, right? Where you drop calories, and of course, because you've dropped it, you're losing weight. But this for me was like a whole lifestyle change. I didn't want to live that way anymore. I was sick of being so consumed by what I ate and how I moved my body, that I knew I had to commit to at least a year doing it. And as you know, I've set my next goal for 4 years' time. So this is it now for me. This is life.
Oh, I love that so much. And that it's removing those expectations that things are going to happen in 12 weeks, things are going to happen in 8 weeks, because like matter of fact, that's not true. Like it's impossible. And if you are getting results that way, then the way you got it is most likely not sustainable. So if you want a sustainable result, you need a sustainable method. The same with everything, right? How were you, say you were at the start of your, like at the journey, what would you say to your former self who wasn't trusting of the process? What would you say to her right now to help her move through trusting the process?
Yeah, I would say that like anything worthwhile in your life is not easy, right? So, and I think we become so fixated on, you know, we look at a year or we look at, you know, 3 months and we go, it's such a long period of time. I'm 41 years old. A year is a very, very small portion of my life to date, right? So I think it's like for me, to start a journey, you think, even though I'd said to myself, I want you to be comfortable, you're giving yourself a year to do this, it still feels a little out of reach, right? And so for me, we made sure that each new training routine, we set a physical goal around what I could lift or, you know, something in relation to the strength of my body. And that was so motivating because I think, again, muscle composition takes time to change. And so I think it's, you know, my advice is that a year is a really short time and trust the process. You know, you will have done a year before you know it. And I think the second is, you know, setting those small goals so that as you're going through each of, you know, those kind of next training routines, you've got that other thing that's motivating you that isn't in relation to what you're eating. But is actually what your body is now allowing you to do because you're fueling it the way that you're fueling it. I remember sending you a photo one night. My husband had hurt his back and we give the kids piggybacks to bed. Our living area is upstairs and their bedroom's downstairs. And he'd hurt his back. And so the kids were like, oh, Mum, can you come up and down twice? And I said to him, well, why don't we see if I can do this? So I put my eldest, he's 10, on my back, and my youngest, he's 8, on the front of me. And walked down the stairs and was like, these kids aren't heavy at all. And so it was, you know, I have these moments of using my strength outside of weight training that I was like, holy crap, man, I am getting strong. And that was like so freaking motivating. That kind of gives you the motivation, right, to keep going. My last thing that I would say is you're worth it. Because I think for all of us, you know, and certainly starting this process is, it's easy to say I haven't got the time or whatever all of the thoughts are, right, that we have in the moment. But, you know, again, through working with you and on some of my limiting beliefs, I absolutely know that I'm totally worth it. And I'm in the best shape I've been in my whole life at 41. And that excites me, right, around what else is possible.
Yes. Oh my God. That is so amazing. And that's it. It's like food and exercise is one thing, but like the flow and effect that it has in for the rest of our lives is just like gives me goosebumps. Remember like having conversations with you, like the first time that you went on a holiday and you had this food freedom and you're like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Or when you're going to I remember in the first few weeks of us coaching together, when you're going to those social situations and you're like, Laura, I was able to have full control and I was able to enjoy myself and I wasn't stressed about the food. And so
Yeah.
what other benefits have you been able to have outside of like body aesthetics? Like obviously we're here for it and we freaking love it, but where else has the flow-on effect been in your life that like the the consequences, positive ones, of healing your relationship with food and finding food freedom?
Yeah, look, I think the social thing is a massive element of this, right? You know, the amount of times that I've been in social settings and I'd be thinking about, oh, I really want that, but that is not that's such bad food. That's not the right food for me to eat. Or I'm going to have to go for an extra run the next day because I'm going to eat it. Or it's actually just how much it consumes your thinking when you're there. And so now I'm there. I'm not worried about the food. I fill my plate with what I feel like. I eat until I've had enough. And I'm present in the conversation with my friends and family who I'm with. And I'm not kind of distracted looking at my plate going, oh, geez, how much is here? What is this doing to me, right? Yeah, exactly. I think I think that just is the overwhelming, change for me. And even just, the thinking about food in my day, it's just not there anymore. It's, and again, and when I say thinking, I mean the judging, right? The judging and the making yourself feel bad for what you might want to eat or what you end up eating. I mean, how many times in the past I would have, had a meal where I've totally gorged and then be like, right, I'm not eating for the rest of the day now. That's totally it. Like I'm done. Or even worse, not eat all day because you're going out for dinner and then get to dinner and you're so freaking starving, you end up gorging anyway. So I think all these social things have been huge. The other thing that I would say though is that my overall energy, I mean, I'm pretty energetic anyway, but I think I feel much more balanced because I have more balanced nutrients in my system. And it's interesting, I notice my hunger levels more in an appropriate way that is like they're real, if that makes sense. Like I think sometimes when you restrict so much is you think you're hungry, which you probably are, but now for me it's like, well, I've done more training or I've had a tennis session or and there's this kind of pleasure around actually now fueling myself because of that activity. But yeah, without a doubt the social thing is a huge thing. God, I wish we didn't do that to ourselves.
I know, but it's so right. It's like as soon as we're stuck in that cycle, and it's that cycle that's feeding back into it, because if we can't get rid of that restriction mentality, of course it's not going to change, because it's that constant, the restriction is fueling like the binges or the overeating periods. And until we actually change our mindset and our thoughts and get rid of that diet mentality is truly when we're actually going to be able to be free with food and then be able to change our body composition so easily, because once that's all under control, honestly, like the maintenance phase and dieting phases are easy, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the other thing that I will say is, I'm not going to sit here and say that I get this perfect all the time, because that's not life, right? Is if I've got my period and I eat more chocolate than I should and I've kind of gone over my calories for the day, then so be it. You have taught me that you just get back on plan the next meal, right? Like it's one meal out of how much of your week. And I think that would be the other thing is I used to focus so much on what I ate a day, whereas now I look at actually, what if I consumed over my whole week and has my whole week been in balance? Because there are days where we're hungrier than others, we've been more active. And so, our body needs that fuel. And so not kind of not judging like each moment, but actually kind of stepping back and going, so what? You had some extra lunch or you had some extra dinner. Like the world isn't going to end. Tomorrow you can get back on track. No use writing off the whole day, right? Like I used to do that. You'd have a meal and then go, oh, I may as well eat bad for the whole day. I definitely don't do any of that. But I absolutely have meals where I overeat. And I'd be, I don't want to give any impression that I'm totally perfect, because I'm far from.
Yes, but then it's that difference of being able to develop that mindset. And that's that whole thing that I talk about all the time in terms of like you've changed your lifestyle, you change your identity, you change who you are in order to then be able to reach your goals. So how were you able to let go of that perfectionism mindset, because I know there are so many women struggling with that. It's if they're not perfect, then what's the point? If I'm not if I'm not getting my exercise right, then I'm not going to reach my goal because I'm not perfect. I don't get my food right, so what's the point for eating right for the rest of the day? So what was some really big things that helped you move through that specific mindset?
I think you almost have to consider it an experiment, right? Is to think about giving it a go and proving yourself wrong, proving that you can do this and still be strong and not fall off the wagon and sustain this way of eating long term. You know, as I said, I've been doing this now for almost a year, and there is no way I am going back to any other way of eating. It's, you know, totally changed my life. But definitely I had these moments of, you know, as I said, it's like eating to menu plan when I first started. That was a bit of an experiment, right? So do that and then feel how comfortable you get. And then the next thing where you start to kind of branch out a little bit more, I think it's the same thing is you do have to consider, it's hard, right? Like I think naturally when you are a perfectionist and you want to control it all. And I definitely went through moments of like tracking calories and not tracking calories. And every time, you know, that I change my macros, I tend to track for a little bit because I'm wanting to get used to, well, if my protein size has gone up, what does that look like on a plate? But I intuitively know now what my food needs to look like on a plate, right? I've done it long enough now to now know what that portion of chicken looks like, or, you know, the portion of turkey or any sort of food that I'm eating, the portion of pasta and gnocchi, all of the great stuff. That I think it is just moving through those almost like little experiments so then you can trust yourself. And then taking those body composition photos, right? Because that is the evidence to say that it's changing. You know, without a doubt, I am weighing more. And as I said, I have got rid of my scales, but I did weigh myself. But my muscle definition is freaking hot. And I've got shape in places I've never had shape. And that's what I was going for, right? And so that's where I think relationship with scales starts to become really dangerous, because it is not a reflection on actually what your body looks like. And if I was to do, I know that would totally derail me if I was focused on that number. It just doesn't even, I actually remember recently weighing myself and feeling so freaking liberated because I went, interesting. And that was it. There was not this spiral of, okay, I'm not going to eat anything for the rest of the day because that number was bigger than what it used to be, or, you know, where it totally changes the course of your day because you've seen something that isn't where you think it should be. It didn't even kind of get on my radar. It was like, interesting. I'll let Laura know what that number is now, but not like, you know, but that was it. There was no downward spiral, which that for me, that was like a huge moment of relinquishing that relationship with a scale.
Yes, and that's so empowering, and I'm so happy that you're able to look at it like that now, and that's so freaking amazing. And that just brings back to the point of like how important it is to have, you know, specific goals that you're working on and focusing on those specific things, and then making sure your actions are actually lining up with those specific things. It was back to like pulling back to when you're like, you know, Alana came to me and when she was sitting through, you know, that discomfort phase, and she was like, her clothes are feeling tight, and she was like, oh, I want to go into the calorie deficit. And then that's the important part for me as the coach, to be the educator for one, but then knowing and being like, no, this is part of the process, this is normal, this is what has to happen in order for you then to reach your goal. But if we pulled you out too early, then those actions are then not alignment with your end goal. So it's really, really important to be making sure your actions are lining up with what you actually want to achieve, because just throwing in more cardio and restricting calories is not helping you get a toned physique, right? It's such an emotional response, and that's the biggest thing that I would want everyone to take away from this podcast, is learning how to respond to something rather than to react to something, because when you're able to do that, like your life will honestly change, because it's that difference between going into those spirals like you were just talking about, or being able to be like, cool, that's just the number. Like, I'm just going to continue with what I'm doing. You can see how powerful those mind shifts can be in terms of like dictating our actions, and ultimately our actions are always going to dictate our results. So
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I definitely remember those. I would say to you, I want to get into a deficit, you know, my clothes are feeling tight. And you'd say, where is it coming from? like what's driving it. It was never some logical thought. It was totally emotional. It was all about my mindset. It was, based on a limiting belief of kind of comparison and what I should look like. And, and I think I said to you this week, I bought a new pair of freaking damn shorts because my butt has got more muscle and they look amazing, right? So it was like, move on from the old shorts, just buy a new pair.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why it's so important to, wanting to change your body composition. It's so important to be working on your mindset and your own limiting beliefs or all your belief and your patterns, because until you really understand what's going on in your little noggin, is really going to be like the success of your results that you're going to get. And that's in every area of your life, right? Like in your 100%. Career, in business. And it's just so powerful topic. And it's something that definitely needs to be working on at the same time as your nutrition. Exercise.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then the last thing that I really want to pick your brain about, because like we said at the start, you're so inspiring, being a mom, boss business babe, so consistent with your food and exercise. How do you manage it all? How do you show up for yourself? How do you juggle your 10 hats?
Yeah, it's not easy. And I think if anyone thinks it is, then they're kidding themselves. But I'm a massive believer of putting my own oxygen mask on first. And that's been a real deep value of mine for certainly as long as I can remember, definitely since having kids. And so having something else that I need to kind of really overtly worry about. And I just know I'm a better human when I have put myself first. If I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel for me at the end of the day, then no one's getting the best version of Alana. Like, I'm so clear on that. The other thing that I will say is, and I use this quote a lot in my business work, is, every system is perfectly designed for the results it gets, right? So, I use this in my work when I look at like organizations and the cultures that they currently have. It's the same for all elements of your life, right? If you are getting a particular result, you have designed your systems perfectly for that result. So for me, when I think about goal setting, it's not actually about the goal. The goals are the destination. The systems that you design to get to the goal is actually where your success comes from. So for me, I am a morning person, and I wake naturally around kind of 5:30 the latest. And I've always done that since having kids, because it's the one time of the day that I can get my exercise in before the whole house wakes. So that's when I exercise. I exercise in the morning and do get my weight session in. I have a home gym, which is awesome. I've just continued to fit that out with equipment as you and I have been working together. And I want to be really clear. It's not like I've got a room that is set up as this beautiful gym in my garage amongst bikes and with a boat and all this sort of stuff. So it's not, I don't want to give an illusion of having a grand, beautiful gym with mirrors. There's definitely none of that in my gym. So I've got really great routine around when I exercise. My clothes that I exercise are out the night before. All these little things are part of the systems that enable me to be successful in, putting myself first and making that time. What's actually been really nice about my weight training is my husband has now started to join me in those sessions. And, we get this lovely time, just the two of us in the morning before the kids wake, which I think, at the end of the day, when you're coming, you've had dinner and the kids are in bed and you kind of get that time together, it's not really quality time that you're getting as parents, right? Yeah. And so that's actually been really lovely for us, just as a couple, to kind of have that time together. Menu planning, which you taught me, that is like my savior, because life is so busy, right? So, I plan all my meals, breakfast, lunch, dinners, and snacks. And when I say I plan, is I literally have a piece of paper that I go, what are my options for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? And there's usually two options for each meal, just to keep life super simple. I do some prep if I need to, depending on what the meal is. Otherwise, I just shop to make sure that I've got all that food in my house, so that when I'm hungry, I've got the food at my disposal that I know fuels my body well, and I am satisfied from eating. Now that takes me like 10 minutes to do, right? So I think these little things that you put in place are so critical to ensuring you can be successful. If I deeply believe that what gets in the way becomes the way. So if we convince ourselves that we don't have the money all the time, or we can't prep food or whatever that looks like, then that becomes your reality. I mean, that's the power of the mind, right? Yep. So I also know that living this way is an amazing example for my kids, right? To see me as a female business owner, to see me putting myself first, all that stuff is such a great example to them, and what they should expect to see for other women in their lives and for themselves, right? But as I said, I'm not perfect. Some weeks I get this right, and other weeks it's like a shit fight from Monday to Friday, and I think, oh my God, how did our whole family actually survive this week? But I work hard to make these choices because they're important to me and my family. But I would say, you pick a couple of things and we just do them really well. And for us, that's exercise and menu planning, and then just making sure that everything else around that is as organized as we can. We have this saying in our house, if it's not in the calendar, it doesn't happen, right? The calendar is really important.
I love that so much. And I think people undervalue like how the simple things can just help so much, because we're always looking for this, like, this magical thing that's going to fix everything. But like, honestly, the power of meal planning, and I drill this into all my clients, is planning meals.
Yes.
Because and I know it's very overwhelming at the beginning for everybody, but like, as you just said, it literally takes you 10 minutes now. So it's just something that's so helpful, and it's become so easy. Did you ever, in amongst that and putting yourself first, and that's so important, and us women, but because we're so loving and we really value others and we're always trying to help because that's just our nature, did you ever experience guilt of needing to put yourself first? And if you did, how were you able to move through that?
Look, not really, because since having the kids, it's been so important to me to do that, to have that time for exercise, even if it was just walking. For me, it's a sanity thing as well. And I've always involved the kids when I've exercised. So I remember when the kids were tiny and I'd have them in bounces and I'd be jumping up and down in front of them and their little heads kind of, going up and down, watching me. So no, I haven't, but I think purely because I've done it for so long and I probably worked through the guilt. Definitely recognize that when I haven't prioritized myself, that I'm not a very nice human being, because for me, exercise is like that stress reliever. And so when I haven't had it, I mean, I vividly, like, I can remember periods of, like, particularly when the kids were really young and not sleeping well and, all that sort of stuff, and not doing it. And my husband would say, have you gone for a run or have you walked recently? Maybe you should do that. I'll take the baby, you go for a walk. And I'm a different person afterwards. So I recognize that even just from my well-being, how important it is. But I totally recognize that that's a thing a lot of parents, right?
Yes. And like, I am exactly the same. And I laugh at you because of, like, Niels used to say that to me. He was like, have you worked out? Have you gone for a walk? Like, have you eaten enough?
Yes. Right. All of that. Yeah.
It's so important, because it's so powerful when we're, if we are better people when we're able to come from that like cup filled place. So I love that you're able to prioritize that and really, act in your values in that way, because you are a better person when you do look after yourself. Moving into, what is your biggest advice for anyone who is struggling with their relationship with food or their body?
I so often have thought, man, I wish I met you years ago, because
I don't
totally changed my life. No, she's not scripted me at all on this. But seriously, I think, I've had such this unhealthy relationship with food and exercise my whole life, and that, through working with you, I've realized that I have the control to change that, right? That is within my own, with knowledge and education and, trust and support from you, that I've been able to totally change that. And it's interesting because I think it's funny, if you look at it really logically, you kind of go, it's just food, it's just exercise, right? But we know it's our freaking brains that get in the way. It's the conversations we have with ourselves, and that is so powerful. And I think that's what I have learned to control, is just my response to the way that food and exercise and the role it plays in my life. And so, my advice is that you can change all of this. You might have been, I started working with Laura when I was 40 years old. So, old dogs can learn new tricks. And so it is within your control, right? I think that just, massive. And for so long, the first time I'm looking in the mirror and I'm not pulling my body apart. I'm not kind of going, oh, this I don't like and this I don't like. I feel really proud that I'm where I am and that I've been so consistent, and that I've just shown up for myself, even on days where I'm like, oh man, got my period, I feel a bit crap, or I'm tired. And Because again, I just know I feel so much better actually once I've done that workout, right? Like I think like anything, we start the first 5 minutes and when we've finished it, we're like, so glad we did that. And so I would say, my advice is that everyone has it within us to change our relationship with food and exercise and find the freedom and not allow it to freaking control our lives the way that it does. It is not that important. It is, I know, because it keeps us alive from a food perspective. But if you think about the amount of space in your brain versus, focusing on other things in your life, that for me, that's the biggest thing, right? Is I now have this space where it's like, oh, I've got, brain space for other things that isn't just all about food and exercise, which is so cool.
Yes, I remember like finding my own food freedom and that being my biggest thing of being like, I've got so much more time for other things. Like you don't realize how much like time and energy is wasted in our heads thinking about our next meal or too many calories or I need to change what I'm doing or I need to go on a deficit or the stories that go on and on. So
totally,
it's so beautiful that you're able like where you are right now, and it's so beautiful. And I'm always so grateful to help you guys through that because it's you guys that are doing all the work. I'm just here to facilitate it and ask them good questions. So
but that's an important part of it. Yeah, that's an important part of it.
Oh, I love that. What's next? What does life look for you?
What's next?
Tell me. Tell everyone.
Yeah, well, I found this amazing image on Instagram of this body that I love the look of. I sent it to Laura and said, this is my body goal by 45. Again, knowing that like it's it's not about being skinny, it's about looking strong and having great muscle definition. And so, you have said to me, well, in the past, you're only at maintenance, maybe you might sit at surplus. And your response on my Insta post was, you know what this means, right? And I was like, yes, it's a surplus. So I want to continue to build these muscles, right? Like I want to be fit and strong. And I know that as I get older as well, this sort of training is so important for my health. But I just feel better for it, right? So my goal is to continue to do what I'm doing, continue to trust myself, continue to work with you and have the trust in you to guide me and pull me into line in those moments where, because again, no one's perfect when I kind of go, I want to get into a deficit. You ask all the great questions and keep me focused on the goal. And I think that's what all great coaches should be doing. So that's the plan.
Yes. And I love that. And I love your transformation in terms of like from once being like, I'm terrified to increase my calories to now being like,
yes,
hells yeah, like let's focus on getting strong, let's focus on getting fit. And I think that's such a powerful mindset shift that we can like really helped me as well through my process was like strong, not skinny. I do this feel strong over skinny. And they were even the mantras that I used to tell myself at the beginning of my journey to, get me through that discomfort. So I love all of that. Alana, I am honestly.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm so excited for you as well. Like I can't wait. So to wrap this all up, is there anything that you would like to add? Maybe one piece of advice, the top tier that you would say for someone who is at the start of their journey?
I would say don't get too focused on the now, right? Is set these little goals and motivate yourself to look forward. I think sometimes, when we think about what we look like today, it's hard to imagine what it will look like in 3 months. Is be consistent. Just show up for yourself every day, whether that be that you're doing a weight session or you're just getting your steps up or you're just fueling your body in a way that keeps you satisfied. Is the consistency is key. And that if you're doing that, then you'll get results. So not overcomplicating it, right? Not trying to do everything, just show up for yourself every day. And I just don't think you can go wrong if you do that.
Yes. And what a perfect way to end, because that's literally my motto is how can we find a way that you're going to be able to maintain consistency? Because consistency at the end of the day is the reason why you're going to get your outcome. Everyone is going to get their outcome as long as they remain consistent. But those self-sabotaging behaviors and those limiting the beliefs are the things that get in the way from stopping us from being consistent. So thank you for sharing that message. Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much.
Same back at you. Thank you so much. I couldn't have done it without you.
And that is a wrap of another episode. Thank you all so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. And I will see you all in the next episode.